My name is Tanasia Buchanan, and today I'll be talking to you about climate change, why we should believe it's real, why we should know that it's very prevalent, all the effects of climate change, and much more. So, the reality of climate change is that anthropogenic climate change, which is the changes in the Earth's climate due to human activity, like fossil fuel burning, deforestation, and industrialism, are very important to address and to know that they, are having their effects. Like fossil fuel burning releases methane and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which can both present themselves as very toxic in great quantities, as we're currently experiencing. Um, Deforestation, which also releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. It's very important for us to have our forests because they absorb so much carbon dioxide that we're emitting due to, fossil fuel burning and industrialism. So it's important to have those forests so that they absorb the carbon dioxide. But when we deforest, we're just putting the carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere because trees do hold so much in their soil and trunks and roots and every part of the tree because they need it so much. Um, and then industrialism, which actually can be traced back to the 1700s. Um, Both fossil fuel burning and industrialism can be traced back to the 1700s during the Industrial Revolution. Um, but all of these things contribute to changes in climate due to the release of CO2 and methane into the atmosphere, which contribute to the global rise in temperature. And we can feel the global rise in temperature through excessive heat, excessive rain, and even excessive snow. And all of these can lead to more intense natural disasters. Every year that we're experiencing recently, we've experienced a lot of natural disasters that have been extremely intense, such as floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, forest fires. So all of these changes can be contributed to fossil fuel burning, deforestation, industrialism, and even more. So the global rise in temperature specifically, we're seeing lots of global rises in temperature over the years from 1880 to 2020. Um, so here you can see that the global temperature has risen more than 1 degree Celsius. Um, and a dramatic increase happened between 1920 and 1940. You can see like right here and up here, and then it just continues to rise. This is likely due to industrialism, but it's continued to rise since then, and I'm sure it's continued to rise even more over the past 5 years as we can see and feel lots of the climate effects more than I think we've ever felt them before. So, why is this something that matters? Why is it something that we should take into account today and change? It matters because it's affecting us today. We see it in so many different situations. We can feel it even here in Cincinnati through excessive changes in weather, through our very dramatic winter that we went through. We see it every day when the weather goes from being like in the 70s to being in 25 degrees the next day, degrees Fahrenheit. And we also see it in the increase in climate disasters around the world. We saw it a lot this past hurricane season. Um, Not that there was an increase in hurricanes, but an increase in the intensity of hurricanes. Um, we see it with forest fires. We saw a lot of forest fires in California recently, but we also saw them in Canada, which affected air quality everywhere in Canada, but also in the United States. So that goes to show that climate disasters that could be happening in another nation can still affect us. Climate change also threatens our health, our water supply from like droughts, our food security, and like it affects animals that some people rely on to for their lives. And then it affects natural ecosystems and so much more. A way that climate change could affect health is that it can contribute to poor air quality, as I mentioned before, with forest fires. Um, and it also can just diminish the amount of resources that you have. I mean, poor air quality also obviously can contribute to lots of respiratory issues like cancer. It contributes to asthma. Also, we saw this last week in our presentation or in our lecture that those with not as many resources to combat climate change often have more disparities in their communities, and just overall more health issues. And then climate change can affect the water supply, as I said before, due to there being more drought in that area. Also, food security, as I stated before. Yeah, these are all the reasons why climate change is affecting us today. So, here are some examples of climate disasters in case you still don't believe that this is something that's happening and that we're feeling in our day-to-day lives. So, these are for sure, or can definitely be traced back to the dramatic changes in climate that we've been feeling, experiencing recently as a society. So the first picture shows forest fires occurring, which likely can be traced back to drought due to not getting enough rain due to changes in the climate. The second picture shows the melting ice caps in the Arctic due to the warming temperature of the warming climate, and this can also contribute to rising sea levels. As you know, when the ice melts, it pushes the water to the sea, and that contributes to the rising sea level, which can also contribute to flooding and hurricanes and tsunamis and all of that. The third and fourth pictures are both the aftermath of hurricanes due to climate changes making them more intense than they usually are, which can lead to lots of negative effects, like I was saying on the last slide, like, you know, threatened health. You know, it's very hard to come back from experiencing things such as this, and being, you know, as secure in your food when you have so much to worry about. So yeah, it definitely affects your health. And all of these examples are very solidifying that we need to redirect the course of the future of the planet so that we can combat these things from happening, and furthering the effects of climate change. Okay, so climate justice is a great part of climate change. Climate justice and injustice are pretty much the same thing in that they both recognize that mostly innocent people, when it comes to climate change, are innocent nations, people, communities, countries, anything, are typically the ones who are most affected by climate change due to them being most vulnerable to the changes in the climate. They're more susceptible to feeling the effects because they don't have as many resources, you know, to combat the effects. It's typically due to being in vulnerable situations to begin with. You know, being in poorer nations, you obviously don't have as many resources, and you're more vulnerable to any sort of change because you don't have as much to be able to react to it, as well as like a nation such as the United States would be able to react to it. Um, so this includes like developing countries and nations, poor neighborhoods, we see it around Cincinnati, and just having few resources to begin with. So this is why climate change becomes a social justice issue, because these developing countries and poorer nations don't have the resources to combat climate change. It becomes an issue of, you know, socialism and injustice in general. You see it in like the poorer countries that get like the trash from the United States and they don't have anywhere to put it. You also see it in like this picture here is just an example. This could be from anything. This could be from a tornado. This could be from a flood. This could be from a hurricane, a tsunami. So many examples of what this could be from. But it shows that they don't have the resources to actively like combat what happened to them. Yeah, it just shows that underdeveloped nations cannot adapt to climate issues as well, and also cannot recover as quickly from these natural disasters, which contributes to, you know, threats in health, um, you know, shortened water supply, like because they don't have the ability to react and recover from this, which puts them even more vulnerable than they were before, even like combating these changes or dealing with these changes. So this just goes to show that changes in the system, like this woman said on her like poster, that changes in the system need to be happen or need to be enacted, to combat climate change, and so that many people don't feel more climate change than other people. Certain groups are obviously disproportionately affected by climate change, which just goes to show and reaffirm that changes in the system need to be happen or need to happen. Certain powerful governments should use that power to help combat not only climate change, but the fact that some people feel the effects of it more than others, um, due to a lack of resources. In these greater countries, should be helping these systems or these poorer countries recover from the changes in the climate. So these are all the sources that I used. This first source, it's just like a source from MIT Climate. The second source, I'm pretty sure I got some pictures from. The third source, I also got some pictures from. And then this fourth source from the New York Times is where I got a lot of my data, just like supporting climate change, and why it's real. And thanks for listening, and I hope that this helped you understand why climate change is very prevalent, why we should take action toward it, toward combating it, and all of that stuff.